Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sidebar session on AI tools for product managers. This is brought to you by Sidebar members and to the Sidebar members. The objective is to fully form community around the topic that everyone might care about. If this is a topic you don't care about, please let us know. If there are other topics you'd like to go over as a follow-up to this session, we would absolutely love that feedback, and let us know what the community wants to hear about and the type of content you might need in the world of product management. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so the agenda for today, I think it's a pretty aggressive and optimistic agenda. We're going to go into intros any second now. We're going to do a demo of deep research tools for the strategy function of product management, which flows into PRDs and feature development. And then we're going to do a demo of AI prototyping, which then we're going to flow and use that prototyping to bring it into an AI coding demo. And then we're going to open it up for QA. So we'll kick off with intros, and I'll start. I'm Louis Moynihan. I'm Chief Product Officer of Coral Messaging, a software startup. Spent 6 years inside of Meta, mostly on WhatsApp, and still working in the WhatsApp ecosystem. And yeah, you guessed it, I've been working on chatbots for the last 8 years, and very interested in how this is all changing the world of bots on WeChat, bots on WhatsApp, and all that conversational AI industry. That's my wheelhouse. And I will pass it over to Florian.
Thanks, Louis. My name is Florian Reuter. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Flowbird. You will hear a little bit more about Flowbird in the demo, actually, which I'm very excited about. I started Flowbird 2 years ago with a former colleague of mine to really bring AI to product management and help people prioritize and figure out what to build next quicker. Before that, I was at BMW building digital products in certain different roles, including being the COO of the BMW Technology Corporation. So I have a ton of experience in traditional industries trying to build software in a modern way. I'm very excited to be here. Supriya's next, I think.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Supriya Gupta. I've worked here in Silicon Valley for almost 20 years in AI, mostly in AI for the 15 of that, and mostly all in product. So I'm really excited about this topic and very passionate about it. I was most recently a VP of AI at Credit Karma Intuit, but I left a few months ago to start a company. The company's called The Agency. It's a highly intelligent, personalized executive ghostwriter. If you DM me if you want to learn more about it. But one of the reasons I'm really excited to share this topic with you all is that as a founder, I've had to experiment with a lot of tools. I also had the freedom to experiment with a lot of tools and learn a lot about how AI is completely disrupting how we build products. And I'm really excited to share a little bit of what I've learned with you all today. All right, I think next is Fernando.
Hey everyone, my name is Fernando Agüero, calling from Spain. I'm the co-founder and head of product at a company called Langai, where we basically help teams with Snowflake data create AI agents that deliver insights to drive growth and retention. I have been working for like 13 years in B2B apps where AI is at its core, and even before AI was cool. Luis, back to you.
Thanks, Fernando. And we'll go to the next slide. And the next slide. Oh yeah, Lenny's bundle, I'm sure everyone knows about it, but there's a bunch of tools that we're demoing today that if you sign up for Lenny's newsletter for a year, you will also get free. If you click on that link, and we will send out the deck after the session, you can go to Lenny's newsletter. It turns out that half of the tools are sold out. So Lenny's bundle has been so successful that Cursor, V0, Replit have actually stopped giving away free licenses in Lenny's bundle. So I'm sure everyone has heard about it, but a lot of what we're going to talk about today, Lenny also talks about, and check out his offer. I think everyone should take a look. All right, next slide. Okay, so I'm up on the first demo. The idea is we try to give about 5 minutes for every demo. We want to open up with what are all the different tools that are available. So I'm going first. In the area of research, imagine you're a product manager or you're a founder and you have an idea for a new startup, a new product, or even a new feature. I know from my years inside of Meta, in some cases, we spent weeks and months looking at research papers. Luckily, Meta could afford to have subscriptions to a lot of the research analysts. However, even Meta didn't have enough budget to have for us to get access to all the white papers we needed. And so researching market analysis, market research, total addressable market, trends in the market was a painstaking process, especially at the large companies. And I would imagine at small companies, and I've also been on the small company side, you tend to not have enough resources or money to afford those papers to begin with. So in the world of LLMs, there is this model or set of models or process that is called deep research, and all the big guys have access to it. All the big guys have a product called deep research. On screen, you will see OpenAI's deep research, Gemini, Perplexity, and Claude. And there is also a comparison blog post, so you can actually take a look at that as well if you already don't know it. And today, I'm going to do a quick demo of OpenAI Deep Research. So I'm going to take control. So give me a second. And bear with us while we pass control to each other. The joys of doing live demos. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen. Let me just maximize the window. I am at ChatGPT.com, OpenAI's tool. My idea is, hey, Netflix has a pretty good business. They are number one in their space. They make a lot of money. They're doing well on the public markets. Is there a way for me to compete and create a competitive product? And how would I go about researching total addressable market, et cetera? So I prompt GPT with what is Netflix TAM, what is their revenue projections for next year, where have competitors failed if I was to create a startup to compete with Netflix, produce a TAM and SAM analysis, complete with any feature gaps, Netflix, et cetera, et cetera. And now the deep research, which I do pay $200 a month for this, I'm going to click the deep research button. I'm now going to hit return. And unlike standard ChatGPT, it is actually going through a process and it's actually asking me additional questions. So I'm going to say USA only to start. All competitors. All revenue. Okay. And it should start processing now. The difference here relative to the standard GPT is it can take up to 10, 20 minutes to go out into the web essentially as an agent and scours the web for data sources. And you can see here it's starting its research. Luckily, I have prepared a doc already that is, I'm going to show you what it produces. And I think I'm going to have to come back to this because it's still thinking. But if everyone lets me know that you're able to see my next screen, which is the output. Yep, great. So as you can see here in yellow is my prompt. It asked me qualifying questions. I responded with an answer. The first time, the demo, my response was a little shorter, but I did respond with more information when I did this a couple of weeks ago. And I think it was, 12 minutes later, it responded with a lot of information. The TAM, the competitors, the penetration of those competitors, the revenue of those competitors, and the key takeaways. And we will, these docs are in the deck so you can read them in detail later. The key takeaways are amazing in my opinion. So there's one takeaway here. This leaves sports enthusiasts as an addressable segment that Netflix isn't serving, and sports content. And the other area that Netflix has a gap in is in the area of social sharing, crowd watching, and discussing the Netflix program socially, or discussing live events socially, is an area that deep research has found is a gap. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of this, but it is a lot of information. There's demographic information here, et cetera, et cetera. And last but not least, the sources are all cited. Okay. So I got this information, and now I am, let me go back to OpenAI. It has only gone through one source. It looks like it might take a little longer today. So it was 12 minutes the last time. It might take 20 minutes this time, but that's the type of output you're going to get. I then reprompt deep research with, this is great. You're a chief product officer in a highly capitalized startup, and you need to create a strategy doc incorporating all the analysis you just did on Netflix. Assume we are differentiating with a focus on sports content, including documentaries, movies, and most importantly, social analysis of yesterday's sports events. This will be the foundation, and live sports event will be the end game. Please use all previous analysis to create a product requirements doc or strategy doc. And it creates this doc. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it is very thorough. And it's actually a much shorter doc, but it is pretty cool. And everyone can see this later. I am now going to pass this document over to Florian and stop sharing my screen.
All right. Thanks, Louis. So we got a pretty amazing output already on the strategy side, but now the question is, how do we turn this into an actual product, and how do we manage our product effectively? And I think there's a bunch of AI tools out there that help with creating, we call it the section PRDs, but I think there's much more to it in really prioritizing, understanding which products to build next, getting the voice of the customer into the mix, so you understand what your real priorities are that you have to focus on, and build something that is actually hitting the spot for your customers. So product management in the age of AI, I think, will be a much different experience. We're showing one tool today, which is Flowbird. That's our tool that we're building, but there's obviously a bunch of other tools. ChatPRD, I think, is pretty well known for creating and drafting PRDs, but you could obviously also go to something like ChatGPT or Claude and ask to refine the information that we got from the strategy part. I'll talk a little bit about Flowbird. We are in open beta right now, very early stage startup. We built Flowbird to really help solve a big problem that I saw in my career for a very long time, that PMs are mostly super busy with busy work, creating documents and artifacts, updating documents and artifacts. And the other point that I hear when I talk to folks is bringing in the voice of the customer, really the customer feedback into the flow. It's extremely time consuming. You have a lot of quantitative data that you look at every day, but really qualitative data integrated deeply in the decision-making process is something that's still a hustle, especially in larger organizations. I've seen that every day at BMW. We tend to be customer-centric, but at the end, we don't know what they want and we didn't talk to them. So we're trying to solve that with introducing a concept called synthetic users. So that's basically the AI replicating a target audience or a set of personas to give you feedback right away about what to build next and how the customer would think about that. So I'm going to show you Flowbird right now, how it works. Again, very early stage. A new version of Flowbird is in the making right now, so you're going to see some big updates coming soon, but this is what we got today. You basically take the strategy that Louis created in the deep research and you feed it into Flowbird. So you can set your OKRs, define your business goals that were created in the deep research for our fake company called Play Pulse. Would be a Netflix competitor, as said, focused on sports. And we basically said OKRs. We can import them into Flowbird, or we can brainstorm new OKRs really easily. And then the other important thing on the strategy side is we want to define our target audience. So who are we going to build this for? Who is our target audience? And we can bring customers to Flowbird or create personas with Flowbird and create a set of demographics and details around these personas, and we will see how we're going to use that later. But it's a really exciting way of representing a customer audience in a very detailed way to work with them and refine what you're going to build down the road. So that's basically the strategic guidance built in Flowbird, and then we go into defining what our product looks like. So for this case, we imported all the MVP features that the deep research recommended into Flowbird. So we started off with a little tagline of what the feature is, and then Flowbird starts to generate a detailed concept. So we start off with a detailed feature brief. This is AI generated. You can go in and refine it as you want, but it basically lays out what every single feature should look like, what the value proposition for the specific target audience looks like. And it starts to detail out requirements that we're going to see in the implementation phase. This is on a very high level, but the next stage will be even deeper, where you can turn these concepts into detailed user stories. So we have, and this is more like on a traditional development cycle when you work with actual humans and not so much AI agents to build your products, but user stories are still the way to go to really define a product and how to build it. We have acceptance criteria in there that define what success and what good looks like. And this is all created by Flowbird in minutes or in seconds, actually, and you can go in and refine it. The really exciting piece that I think differentiates Flowbird from everything else out there right now is the customer validation. So I talked a little bit about the idea of synthetic customers. So what we did is we generated these personas that I showed you before. And now we ask the AI to basically look at our product ideas through the eyes of these personas. So we basically shift perspective. Now I can ask Emily to tell me a little bit more about what she thinks about the feature and how it would help her pain points and customer needs to be resolved by this idea, and what potential challenges she would see. And we can take that into account and refine our feature to really narrow it down to something that works for a specific target audience, like Emily or Carlo in that case. Or we can really go broad and ask a bunch of synthetic users to give us broad feedback on what they want, and we can take that into account when we prioritize our features and refine them. So this is a very simple implementation right now. We're going to go much deeper in the next round where we can really interact with these customers and synthetic users to get their feedback in. And the last thing I'm going to show is real quick is the idea of adding new functionality. So it's really, really simple to brainstorm solutions. If I want to enhance my user engagement on the platform, I can ask the AI to help me do that by typing in a simple request, focus on a certain target audience, and then the AI comes back with a set of features that it thinks will help me to achieve that. I can go through these features. Interactive sports trivia is something that sounds interesting. I get a high-level concept and then can add it to my backlog and work through this again with creating feature brief, asking users what they think about it, turning it into user stories, all within a matter of minutes. Then we export it and we create a prompt in this case. And I'm going to hand this prompt virtually to Supriya.
All right. Thank you so much, Florian. That's really cool product. I am going to now take over and share a little bit about prototyping with AI. So, just go into this.
As we're transitioning, I had a quick question. There is a question for Florian. Do we take that now or later? How would you guys prefer that?
I think Florian can answer the question in chat, and we'll try to keep going through the demos. We have a lot more to show, and do Q&A at the end, live Q&A at the end.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. All right, so I'm going to be sharing a little bit about prototyping, just to sort of set the stage, and then we'll go into the actual demo. So a few top tools in this category include Bolt and Lovable. Those are probably the most common. There's also things like V0 that I've also tried, and some others. I find that Bolt and Lovable are like the best, at least for me. They're easiest to deploy. I did try using V0 on a personal basis. I just didn't find it to be as user-friendly, and it got a little unruly once things got to some level of complexity, especially when you start to go into backend and like API integrations and things like this. So that's why this list looks this way. Bolt probably leans a little bit more to getting you toward a working product. Lovable is presumably better for design. It also does interesting things where it'll like refactor your code as you go. But honestly, when you're at this early prototyping stage, which is what I'm demoing specifically right now, they're both just dead simple to use. So I'm going to show off Lovable. I'm going to show off Bolt today, but Lovable works very, very similarly. Some of you might be wondering if you work at a company where you don't have access to all these third-party tools. I also listed Claude here, but you can also use ChatGPT as well to also do code. I've used that to actually mock up and try out like landing pages and landing page designs and things like this. It's just that the UI for Claude and ChatGPT is their general UI, and so it's just not as user-friendly, but it's not impossible to try to use the general tools for this as well if you're in a pinch. And I think one last thing to note is Claude has a coding product. I've personally not tried it out yet. It's on my to-do list for this week to give it a try. But that's something else you all can also go explore. But for prototyping, I recommend Bolt or Lovable. So we're going to hop into Bolt. Sorry about that. There we go. So I got this output from the tool that we just went through, and I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this into Bolt. So what I'm doing here is I've opened up Bolt, I've logged in, and I'm going to ask it to actually build a product. And so typically what I'll do is I'll work with a tool like Flowbird, or potentially use something like Claude or ChatGPT to create that first draft of the PRD. And then I'll take that and I'll pop that into Bolt. And then what Bolt does is it'll understand all these details and actually come back and build a prototype for you pretty quickly. So it's working on that right now. And so what you can see is it'll actually provide the code for you that you can export. As you can see that you can hit this export button to export your code, especially if you want to move on to actually building this out or share this with your engineers. One common way of working that I've also chatted with other PMs and CTOs in the more of the startup space is just using some of these tools to actually quickly prototype and build sort of a basis for code for engineers that they can then take that and actually iterate and integrate it into the larger code base, especially when you're trying to make, small changes to the UI, etc. But this is going ahead and actually building out the whole tool and the whole experience. And eventually the preview will show up here. And like I mentioned, Lovable also works very similarly. So there's a chat interface here that you can use, and you can quite literally use natural language to just prompt it and ask it for anything that you want it to build. Just giving this one more second to load.
There's a question in the chat, Supriya, while we're waiting.
Okay,
Have
great.
you used Google's new Firebase Studio for mobile app development?
So I personally have not, but I've heard great things about Google Studio. So Google Studio and the Claude code editor, relatively new releases, for just FYI for everyone else. I'm curious if other folks on the call, if you want to continue to chatter on the meeting chat about it. I've not tried either one, but I've heard really, really great things about both of them.
And Supriya, how long does the Bolt process usually take the last time you did it?
It was actually usually pretty quick, so I'm actually surprised it's taking a little bit of time. So sorry about that. This is like longer than expected.
We should have some background music during this time.
I know.
Just
You
back for
like
next
usually
time.
comes back to me in like less than a minute or two. It'll come back with the.
Yeah, sure.
They must
The
have like
joys of
updated it.
I was saying the joys of live demos, but please, if anyone has questions, this is a good time to ask questions while
While this is
GPTs
loading.
are thinking.
There are a few questions from Kia there in the chat.
Oh yeah, the Replit. Fernando, are you gonna go through Replit today, or you're going through Cursor, right?
Cursor.
I'm gonna go, yeah, Cursor.
Yeah, I'll give my 2 cents on Replit is they're all kind of very similar. V0, Lovable, Replit, Bolt. I didn't cover Replit because I feel like it goes a little bit more into the coding side, which Fernando's going to cover in the next demo. But I think one of the advantages of using Replit is that they have an ecosystem of developers. So you're able to potentially hire a developer that can actually come in and help you with your code. And that's been one of the things for where, if that's helpful for you, that's a really helpful feature. Other than that, I find that Bolt and Lovable are just generally much easier to use if you're not trying to necessarily ship off of these platforms, though people do ship basic apps off of these platforms as well.
Great point here. I've noticed that once the Pacific Coast comes online, all these services slow down. So it's all our fault, which is fine.
Right, it's right at 9 a.m.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
device is going much slower than normal.
There's another question here. I think Fernando is probably good to answer. What's your experience handing prototype tools and prototypes off to eng teams? Is it like, get that away from me, or is it, oh, this is really helpful? Fernando?
Well, it depends on where the product team is. I know teams that they are able to ship the features they build using AI to a small group of beta users, and then they hand off that to the engineering team once they prove there's value there. And then most commonly, or how we work at our team, yeah, we work with the team from the beginning on prototypes, right? Even engineers do these prototypes. So there's a conversation going on all the time. It's not just a handoff, like you hand off like a PRD or something like that. So it's more natural, right? Where everyone starts with the same prototype in the conversation. So there's not like a handoff itself. So it's really smooth on that side, if that answers your questions, Kia, from my experience.
Supriya.
There we go.
Sorry for the delay, guys. Here we are. So we actually have like a full-on, working prototype of our Pulse Play, which is our Netflix competitor that's focused on live sports and sports-based entertainment. So this gives you all the bones that you would need. So it's got this VOD library, this daily feed, all these different things. And for the sake of time, I was going to just show how you would add a new feature, which you literally would type in here. I'm going to just hand it off to Fernando because I want to make sure we have enough time to go through coding. But this is this really is how easy it is to build. And if you are building something just to get a concept in terms of a sense of what it's going to look like, this is really great to hand off to and work with engineers and other designers as like a starting point, taking what's in your head, making it tangible, and having a conversation about it. And then from there, you can decide if you want to use Bolt or if you want to use other tools to then, make the iterations and sort of continue on in terms of development. All right, I hope you guys found that to be helpful and insightful. I'm going to hand it off to Fernando now for the next section.
Thank you. So, cool. Okay, so in this step, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the prototype that Supriya built, or like the code that was generated in a platform like Board, Lovable, or B0, and we're going to make it work in a production environment, right? So why would you do that? There are different use cases, right? Maybe just plainly, you're building a new product, you want to have users access it, pay for it, so long just launch a product from scratch. And you may need some flexibility, right? Once you want to make it scale, you need that flexibility. That's why the coding gets here, and the platforms like the prototyping platforms, they're short in that sense. And then the other use case that I have seen in companies too as well is running like more higher fidelity product discovery in a way, where I know companies where product teams are the ones that are actually building that prototype, but it's actually connected to their database, so they can have like a beta group of users, and the actual product managers are the ones that are building features with real data, testing their assumptions, validating their assumptions, doing solution discovery. And then once they prove that, then they can do the handoff, like Kia was sharing in the chat, to the engineering team, so they can focus mostly on making it scalable, on making sure they are performant, and everything else, right? Which I think is amazing, right? Someone that a few years ago wasn't able to show like a potential high fidelity solution and do that discovery, now is able to do that. So I think this piece is especially helpful and unlocks a lot of speed and value to companies on that use case, right? So there are a lot of platforms here as well. Just mentioned here, Cursor, GitHub Copilot, Replit. There are others like Windsurf, for example. The only one that I think is a bit different, as Supriya mentioned, Replit is different from Cursor or Copilot in the way that it's more end-to-end, right? If you wanna, it allows you to quickly deploy it or add it to a database if your app needs it. And it has like a whole ecosystem there in the browser. So in a way, it's more like beginner friendly. If you want to just start with this and start with something small, I think Replit is a great option. If you're going a little deeper, doing a lot of iterations, in my experience, I had some challenges, and an internal product that we built in our company that I built. I started with Replit, and after a few days, moved to Cursor to go more into the details, and that's my experience, right, in the last few months. So today's demo is around Cursor, and as you can see at the bottom of the slide, it says the estimated time 45 minutes is not the time that I'm going to be doing for the demo, is the time that it actually took me from this first step of cloning what we have in the prototype to adding an API so we can show real sports documentaries, movies. I connected to external API and then deployed, all the prompts, talking with Cloud, with Cursor, deploying it, all of that took me around 45 minutes. So you have kind of a sense of how long this can take, right? So we have Louis talking about 10, 20 minutes, Florian, maybe another 10, 15 minutes, Supriya may take between a few minutes, 5 minutes, and then 45 minutes. So in the end, the whole pipeline, you can do it in more than less than 2 hours or so, right? Cool. So the first thing I just want to mention here, you need to install Cursor. It's not a browser app, as most common AI apps that you see here. So you can go to our website, install it, and then the first step, which I think is really important here, I know it's getting a bit technical, but as Supriya was sharing in her slide before, as the option 3 of prototyping, I'm doing this combo of using Cloud and Cursor at the same time. So what's gonna be you're gonna be seeing now, right? What we're gonna be doing is downloading the X16 prototype code, so we don't need to rewrite everything from scratch. That wouldn't make much sense. And then I have been using Cloud like a thought partner, right? I want to decide how that architecture looks like, and that's important because depending on what you want to do, you may need a backend or a front end, or you may have some scalability needs. So you need to give the proper context on where to start, especially trying to make things simpler. So Cursor or Copilot or Replit, they don't go wild and start making things way complex. I think that's the whole point of this initial step, right? And then once we have it ready, we will have it in our computer so we can then extend it later, which in the end will be way more flexible for like production use cases than just having this in Replit or in Lovable, right? So for that step, what I did, I'm gonna go to my browser. Let me just close this. I went to Cloud. I had two things, right? One is the code that Supriya shared with me that I have in my computer. And then I went here to Cloud and I asked, I'm in the process of moving from a bulk prototype into a production-ready application. I'm going to be using this as a starting point, added just a bit of context. It's not that much important right now. And then just added a bit of scope. I just focus on like a simple front and back end, no video streaming yet, just starting scratch. And then as a scope, I just mentioned Cloud. I want to add an API to fetch that list of sports documentaries just to add a bit of interactivity, right? So far, we only have like static data, and that's what I wanted to show. And then something which is really critical, like how the same we saw with Luis from the research, I specifically ask Cloud, ask clarifying questions, which I think is really key. So Cloud can actually build the proper prompt that I can use to Cursor, right? I can use with Cursor. So here it's asking me if I have any preference, if I want to include authentication, if I have that API for sports, or if I need help finding that one, if there's any performance requirement, when are we going to add in the streaming functionality, if I'm the primary developer, all those questions. I answer all those questions, and then I get the basic, like the response, really detailed response, which is what we're going to be using with Cursor. You don't need to actually understand or have knowledge around all of these. The whole point of this is to have something that is using existing technologies, the proper project structure, a proper implementation plan, so then we can continue iterating on the product, basically having a good starting point, right? The only thing that I said here is, can you share it with more detail, because I'm going to share this with Cursor, and then it just added a little bit more of the details here. What I did, I just went to the bottom, copied this prompt here, open cursor. It looks something like this. You have a chat on the right. You can paste it. The UI is pretty similar to other products. You can paste it, and then you will see how then it starts creating the new files, changing what we already pasted from Bolt, and then it tells you how you can run it, right? I don't have the chat here, but it tells you how you can run it, and then once you click there, it opens. You can open the browser, and this is what you see, right? Which is this similar version of what we have from Supriya, right? Let's imagine that this is what Supriya built in Bolt. Nothing new, it's just like, let's say, copy pasted, but ready to go in a way that cursor can extend it, right? I can just navigate through all of these. It's just all static data. So next step, let's start adding a little bit of interactivity, right? Some dynamic data. So in this step, what I wanted to do is integrate it with an external API. I didn't know about it. I just used Cloud to find it. It turns out there's like the movie database API, and I just asked it, how can I adapt it? And again, I use it Cloud to give me the prompt that I can use for cursor, right? I just ask, can you help me build the correct prompt for cursor? I want to change the library page, which is this one here. We're navigating to integrate it with the movie DVR API. When the user clicks on the spore from the existing menu, the app should fetch the movies for the spore and list the movies instead of that placeholder data. And this is something that already Chloe in another chat shared with me, so it was helpful for cursor to know. And again, it just creates a detailed task overview, requirements, implementation steps, and everything that I could just paste to cursor. So now here in cursor, I can navigate to my chats. Here, I'm gonna go to this one. Let me go to the top. Obviously here, once you paste that, being realistic, there may be like some errors, and then you fix that, and that's why it may take you like 15, 20 minutes to get it right how you want it. So this is the actual prompt that Cloud generated for me. As you can see, the requirements, what it needs to do, how's the format, everything like the technical pieces, which you don't need to actually understand. And we can see how it starts exploring. It started creating the new directories, the new files. We can see here, it asks me to put that API key, tells me how I can get it, where do I need to put it. And then if I move there, let me just move here real quick. And if I open it again, we should be able to see, now if I go to library, now we're seeing that it's loading. It's using the API behind the scenes, right? Now if I if I navigate between all these sections and the spores, now behind the scenes is using the API. It understood how the API works. It understood how it can filter, and potentially you can iterate this feature however you want directly by using the chat here from Cursor. And the last step for this demo that I wanted to do is just to deploy it, right? So in the first step with Cloud, it asked me if I had any preference on where to deploy it. I said no. And based on the code that I already have from Bolt and what I wanted to do, it recommended me a platform. Let me go here. A platform that is called Versal that you may not know about, because it was a great choice in terms of like the simplicity I needed, the scope of the product that I was building, and it was really quick to actually deploy the product, right? It took me like around 5 minutes, as I put there at the bottom of the slide. And how I did it, basically, I went to Cursor, I go to another chat here, and I just did here, I now want to deploy this app to Versal. Can you help me set it up? What steps do I need to follow? It just checked a bit of the code. It just created a one file that it was needed to create it, and it told me, okay, you actually need to do that. Turns out that I only needed to do step 2, which was just connected what I have with this platform called Versal. Just enter there, click on deploy, and in 5 minutes, I was able to get that URL. So we can see here, this is already in the internet. Anyone can access it. And the good thing here is that now it's really easy. If I want to change the domain, I can do it. Now that I have all the flexibility from Cursor, if I want to add user, password, or social logins, I already had that prompt also with the help of Cursor. Obviously, sorry, for cloud, you can always use Cursor directly. I think if you're starting, it will be helpful to get that help from cloud, but once you start using it, it's actually not needed, because in the end, all these apps like Windsurf, Copilot, Cursor, they are aimed for engineers. Those are the tools that mainly engineers have been using, but they have been iterating, so the UX is actually way better. They call it, agent mode, chat. So it's actually, it has been like way easier to use than in the last 3, 4, 5 months. So that's what actually the PMs from my company are also using. And I think it's great that everyone uses the same, right? Engineers, designers, PMs, because another key piece that I wanted to mention is that to these tools, you can add context. There's like Cursor rules or GitHub Copilot context. And if you put context from your product, it works way better. The output for everyone, it works way better. So in the end, it's great if you have all your team using the same tool, so the context is the same, right? And you can keep iterating, and in the end, it's like a loop where you get better and better results over time.
Fernando,
right?
can you just demo that this is actually live on the internet? Like, can you search for some sports content and hit play? Is that possible?
Yeah, let me share. I didn't implement the actual search to the API. I only implemented to here. Like if I put like, I don't know, Larry Bird, it filters here, or I don't know,
but does
soccer
the
it
videos actually play?
No, I added, I only used, if you can see here, I grabbed the title, description, scoring, and everything, but I didn't implement here yet, like the actual link to the video.
Okay.
But everything here is dynamic. That will be like 5 minutes more, probably.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Thank you, Fernando. Any questions, Fernando? Please put it in the chat. And also, if I think we still have a few minutes left, if anyone wants to ask questions live, we're definitely interested in the audience and the community's opinion on all these things. Ida, you've had your hand up quite a while, and please go ahead.
Yeah, so I put this in the chat also. I'm just wondering from a leadership perspective, for those of you who are leading teams that might not have enterprise access to AI tools, how are you protecting yourselves against shadow IT and potential loss of intellectual property, or people potentially loading customer data or PII data that could get you in hot water? And then of the tools that we saw today, can you give us a quick summary? I can look it up too, but I'm wondering if there's a favorite that you have for actually protecting your creativity and not dropping everything into GitHub or something that is searchable by anybody else. Like, how do you, I have my own method of doing that, which is basically download everything, delete it from the service, hold it until I need to work with it again, upload it, and keep working and download it, right, and delete it. So that's my method, even on a paid subscription. But I'm wondering, I'm guessing that if I was running a team of 50 product managers, they're not all going to have that level of diligence. And like, how should we be thinking about that as leaders?
Great question. Anyone want to take this first? I have opinions, but team? No? Yeah, my view on this is it's a very important question. I think if you're a scrappy startup, it doesn't matter. You have nothing to lose, right? I think it's more, the question is more if you're a large enterprise and you have revenue to protect, then it's a much more important question. In that scenario, Lenny just interviewed the founder of Cursor, and he said one of the things he was surprised of was that he didn't realize he was going to get into training his own model, because he thought the models would be just fine for it. but I think there's a double reason for that. One is you have to eventually host your own LLM and potentially fine tune it if you wanted to do special things for you and for the products you're building. And then secondly, to protect what you're building. So I think from an enterprise perspective, if you have 50 product managers and hundreds of engineers, and they're now using tools like Cursor to Code, then you're at a point where it actually makes sense to host your own LLM and just keep everything private. But that's probably an overkill answer potentially. But Fernando, Supriya, Florian, and if you guys don't have anything to add, Dijant also has his hand raised.
Digan. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just like echoing, replaying some of the conversation in the chat as well. If you're using most companies I've come across, the generic thing that you have access to is OpenAI's ChatGPT. They have provisions for enterprises to not only like not train on your data, just keep everything isolated. That's how we dealt with it. If you're talking about shipping product to end users, it's also prudent to have like guardrail mechanisms to scrub PII before it goes into the LLMs as well. That might be where you were going with that. My personal experience is we built custom code for that, but that was because we were working with products that were live to end users. So we can't control what the end users will send to us. So those are two things to consider, going beyond the standard configuration.
Yeah, and a lot of answers talking about Azure, Bedrock. There's definitely ways to protect your data, and I didn't mean that you should host your own LLM or, God forbid, fine tune it. But there's definitely answers to those questions.
Yeah, depends on what you're.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question of Florian about synthetic audiences. So is a thought process that you use a synthetic audience to build your discussion guide and then validate it with real users and see if there's a strong correlation? Or are you suggesting synthetic audiences are enough to validate your risks or de-risk your idea?
No, I think it's a great question, but I don't think it's enough. I think it's more like a first gate or a second gate. I think it helps a lot to do more effective discovery and really learn more about your audience. I think combining the synthetic data in the LLMs, plus you might have interview data from real customers, right? That are not really actionable or don't come alive. But if you feed that on top of it into the tool and basically add more context, I think those synthetic customers become more alive and more realistic for what you actually need, which is, I think, super powerful because that data is then sitting next to you while you build and create products. I think that's extremely powerful. But I would always go down the route and say, okay, eventually we get to a point where we need to talk to real customers and hypotheses. Those are still hypotheses at the end, so we need to validate these with real customers. But you can narrow the scope down from 100 different ideas to the top 5 ideas that really move the needle, then use those 5 ideas, build prototypes for them, and validate them with real customers. I think that will speed up the process dramatically. But to answer your question, I don't think it will replace real customers. I think it will speed up the process and narrow down what you actually need to validate with real customers.
Yeah, great. Thanks. That's really helpful.
I think a bit.ly link has been placed in the chat. Please give feedback. We're super interested in topics. We want to know what you guys want to see, hear, learn. What the community is asking for is probably the #1 ask from us. And if there's any more questions, please ping them, or Ida.
I'm just wondering, this is like such a great group of brains on this topic, and I find it really hard to stay ahead of the curve on what is happening and what's coming. Is there an affinity group at Sidebar for product people in AI or tech people in AI?
Yeah, there's a new I don't know if Matt's on the call, but there's a new group called AI Tools for PMs.
Oh, great. Okay. Thanks.
And it's either going to be its own channel, or this series or this webinar, this session has created its own chat, which is, it's going to be one of the two, I believe.
Thank you.
Great. I think that's a wrap. Suba, are we all good on your end? I think so. Thank you, everyone, thank you to the Sidebar community for actually putting this event on, for all the presenters, all the demos, again, all the minds, all the questions. This is what community is about. We want to gather around important topics that the community is interested in. And so thank you from the Sidebar community and to the Sidebar community. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.